Right, okay everyone, the festivities are over. I know you're itching to know what Santa brought me. This wonderful hat, which will definitely be coming to a reaction near you at some stage. And of course, probably a gift that was in most of our hampers this year. Callum McGregor, the making of a Celtic captain. Can't wait to get fired into that once my hangover subsides and I can concentrate on something for like over 5 minutes. Maybe this video will go well. We'll wait and see. It's been a fun few days for me. But as I said right at the start, the festivities are now over. We are now forced to focus on football. Ange Postecoglou says it always feels like a big game at Easter Road. Tomorrow certainly feels like a big game. We're going to run through all of the usual pre-match stuff like team news, Ange quotes, lots of Ange quotes today, predicted 11s, referee appointments, all of that kind of stuff, as well as a few other bits of news that have come up over the past 48 hours or so. So let's do it. Sorry, by the way, I should say I got this as well. So it's been a fairly productive period. I like the fact I've got the kind of old-fashioned badge there rather than the new one with the kind of daft crest over it that Celtic seem to be in love with at the moment. So yeah, big fan of that. Not sure if I was a big fan of yesterday being Boxing Day and having no Celtic match. It just seems like that's always the case, that we have Boxing Day, a pile of fixtures both north and south of the border, and it almost always includes Celtic. 2016 was actually the last time that Celtic didn't play on Boxing Day, so it was a little bit strange yesterday. Although having said that, I did quite enjoy the whole Christmas Eve thing. Nice and early kick-off, get a victory and kind of send you into, Christmas Day with a spring in your step, and we certainly did that on whatever day that match was on. 4 goals scored. We could easily have scored 6 or 7 had we taken our chances. And I think it's fair to say this Celtic squad is in a really good place at the moment as we go forward into a major week. I'm not going to try and build it up as something that it isn't. If it goes well, there's a fair chance we're going to win the league. I think you would agree with that. If it goes to 12 points, we would be like huge favourites to win the league. If it doesn't go as well, then maybe we'll have a little bit of a fight on our hands, but still obviously going to be in a commanding position. So we've had bigger weeks in Celtic's history, but Hibs away, Rangers away, it's very tasty and I can't wait to get into it. But obviously, first of all, we're talking about Hibs, and even before we get on to that kind of chat, there's a couple of bits of news that we haven't touched on yet on the channel. And the first bit is that it seems like we're going to have our 6th Japanese player entering the building soon, as I not so subtly hinted on the channel just the other day. Maybe it would be another Japanese player. Yeah, I was hearing the name Tomoki Iwata middle of last week, and kind of told to look out for this one happening, and it seems very much like this is going to happen. It seems like this deal is as good as done and could be confirmed in the next few days or so, which is great news. It's great news for Celtic, but I'm not talking about Celtic. I'm talking about the fact that we get to hear more from Sam Robson on the channel. By the way, his early verdict on this signing is that it's one that makes sense. He says Iwata is versatile. He apparently split his playing time last season between centre-back and defensive midfield, but he has also played on the right of a back three in the past, and also just as a right back as well. So it seems like he can cover a number of positions. We know that Ange likes players who can do that. We also know that he knows Ange. Ange signed Iwata for Marinos in his final season in Japan, and it actually kind of facilitated a change to a back three for Marinos at that stage, according to Sam. So it may be interesting to see if that is something we could ever see from Celtic, and whether Iwata is kind of the missing piece of the puzzle with regards to that. I would just suggest that it's a player that Ange knows well. It's a player who got the most valued player award in the J-League last season, so good pedigree, and someone who can come in and hopefully improve us, or at the very least add even more competition for places. On the flip side, the knock-on effect may be, I'd say very likely be, that Yosuke Ideguchi is on the return flight back to Japan. We've covered that previously on the channel. I think the latest was that Celtic were kind of very much open to offers in his homeland next month. I still expect that's one that will happen. The news today that is maybe a little bit more interesting, but maybe not when you actually look at his game time, is Oliver Abelgard. Reports in Russia saying that Celtic and Rubin Kazan have reached a deal to end his time in Scotland. He's not actually started a competitive match for Celtic. I think he's played something like 7 matches off the bench. I always thought this was an interesting deal, and even just going back to like midnight on whatever it was, the day that we announced the signing, the wording around the transfer was very unusual, very vague given what was and is going on in Russia. A season-long deal was the phrase that Celtic used. A week or so later, we got a bit more from Ange. He did say it's not that straightforward, but we've got him for this year, and that's what we're focused on. We'll see where we are and what the options are. So yeah, it's obviously disappointing to an extent, because he came in with a fair amount of noise. He was talked up by a number of people, and it just hasn't worked out for him. Hasn't really had an opportunity. Such a difficult part of the team, but as I said, I think with Ideguchi, if you can't find your way into that part of the team when Callum McGregor misses 3 odd months, then you're going to really struggle to get into the team when he's fit and available. So disappointing in one respect, I think also encouraging in another, in that Ange isn't wanting to keep players around who aren't going to contribute for the team. He's not going to hoard players. I think it's pretty clear that Ange wants a squad of however many people who can all contribute for Celtic, could all be thrown into virtually any match and really perform for the team. And yeah, reading between the lines, he doesn't feel that with Abelgard and Ideguchi, and it seems like both of those guys are going to be moved on next month. And yeah, I think that's just the way things go. I'm intrigued as to whether there's any other players that Ange feels that about. Probably wouldn't be hard to find out. You would just look at the first team players who have played the fewest minutes this season, and whether we'll see any of them moved on in January as well. But I think, as much as it's disappointing about Abelgard, because up until this report I still kind of held out some sort of hopes for him in the second half of the season. But yeah, sometimes these things don't work out. Right, moving on. Tomorrow we take on Hibernian, who currently sits 7th in the Premiership, as you can see there. They got a big win over Livingston, 4-0 at the weekend. I think that was their first win in a good while. Games at Easter Road are very often difficult, and even though they're still in the bottom half of the table, they have showed on occasion this season that they can produce the goods in the big game. So it's going to be a testing one. Again, we just got a short press conference from Ange ahead of the match. Again, it was recorded after our previous match on Christmas Eve. He was asked about Josip Juranovic being back and said it was unlikely that Juranovic would be involved at Easter Road. Also asked about another right back, Anthony Ralston. No real clarity on Ralston. I got the impression it was very much, we'll wait and see. Ange did say there was improvement with Ralston on Saturday, but that it's a day-by-day thing. Find out in about 30 seconds whether I think he'll make it or not in a predicted 11. Elsewhere, David Turnbull is suspended for the game, as well as Ibrox after his red card against St Johnstone, while Johnston and Kobayashi are eligible for Ibrox, but not for tomorrow at Easter Road. So yeah, this is a team that I am going for, with Joe Hart in goals, Reo Hatate still in at right back. Obviously, if Ralston is fit, I think Ralston will play there. But yeah, you know, Hibs is a tougher match, but I think the way Hatate played at the weekend, no one would have any major issues about him playing at right back. Carter Vickers and Starfelt continuing in the middle with Greg Taylor on the left. Aaron Moy Again, in the midfield, alongside O'Reilly and in front of McGregor, I thought Aaron Moy was excellent at the weekend, and I get the impression tomorrow night is the perfect kind of game for him. I think he really takes care of the ball, and in very kind of frantic games, as they tend to be at Easter Road, he could be the calming influence that we really need. And that front three of Liel Abada on the right, Jota on the left, and Kyogo through the middle. It was quite a short video again that the club put up with Ange, just I think shy of 3 minutes at the end of his post-St Johnstone press conference. But plenty of interesting stuff in there actually. I thought some really interesting bits. One comment from Ange I wanted to share, probably the best that we've had from him, certainly the best I've seen, talking about squad rotation and why he feels that is necessary for us to get to where we want to be. And to put in consistent displays. Ange says everybody wants to play every game, but it's impossible if we want to maintain the levels we need with the schedules we have. We need players out there all the time with energy. Our medical and sports science team have done an outstanding job this year in terms of keeping our best players on the park all the time. So it's clear that rotation is going to continue to some extent. I think you'll continue to see it in the really kind of positions where we really need energy. So I think the wings, for example, you saw at the weekend against St Johnstone, James Forrest came in, Daizen Maeda came in, both played really good matches. Will either start the game tomorrow night. I've certainly not got them in my team. Ange spoke about Abada meriting a start against St Johnstone, but just that we had to change things around. So I would certainly expect Abada to start, and I think everyone would expect Jota to start. So, and that's not even including someone like Haksabanovic as well. So really good options there, and I think we're going to continue to see Ange rotating those players to kind of give us the maximum energy. The referee, Alan Muir, assisted by Callum Spence and Drew Kirkland. The fourth official is Colin Stephen. Video assistant referee, Andrew Dallas. And assistant video assistant referee is Graham Chambers. Now, just on the subject of VAR, St Johnstone's Cammy McPherson kind of confirmed what we've all been thinking at the weekend, that VAR is helping teams against Celtic in a way. Speaking after the game, McPherson said, when Celtic get going at that intensity, they're hard to stop. The multi-ball system helps them as well. You never get a break. It's actually good when it goes to VAR because you can get a bit of a breath. You rarely see Ange animated with referees, but the things that really seem to irk him are things that slow the game down, whether that's referees not given proper advantages or obviously the VAR stuff. So when you hear an opposition player coming out and basically saying that this is helping them to try and deal with Celtic, I mean, like McPherson was speaking after a 4-1 loss at Celtic Park, so it's only working to an extent. But you wonder how much more difficult it would be for the opposition teams if the game, continued to be free-flowing and without 2-3 minute breaks every kind of 20 minutes or so. It does seem to affect us a little bit. So I thought that was interesting as well. It certainly hasn't escaped you lot. Basically, I've had a lot of people bringing it up on social media, etc. These were interesting comments. Would love to hear Ange's take on them. Maybe we'll get that at some stage when he kind of speaks to the media properly again. But I think tomorrow night will be a pretty frantic game. They usually are at Easter Road, and I think that will suit this Celtic team. I expect it to be end to end. I expect Hibs to come and have a go. Yes, I did say that about Aberdeen as well, and look what happened. But I just think Hibs Celtic games are always really tasty and always tend to be quite difficult for us as well. But got real faith that the team's in a good place at the moment. And I just think with Ibrox coming up as well, the message is very simple. It's just win this game and make sure at the very least we go to Ibrox with a 9-point advantage. You really don't want to kind of fall at the hurdle before the main hurdle. Absolutely shocking for me, but you have a rough idea of what I mean. Kick-off tomorrow is 8 p.m. The match is live on Sky Sports, and we will have the reaction for you shortly after full time. Chat to you later. Don't know what that was.